Jordan, and I am a writer, producer, filmmaker, etc. I'm from Oakland, California. I have a passion, Bay Area. I'm very passionate about youth organizing, social justice, and equity.
Awesome. And Natasha, you guys, ladies, have to share the mic.
I'm Natasha de Ganello Girodi from Caracas, Venezuela. How did I say that? After Oakland got such a cheer. So I'm a creative director, founder of microdocumentaries. So we produce short documentary-style films for purpose-driven organizations to help them advance their missions.
Fantastic. Well, thank you. So pick those two ladies' brain later in the break. We're nearly there with the break, but I can highly recommend it. So we watched a lot of different videos, right? And a lot of different emotions. Sometimes I heard a lot of giggling. Sometimes it was quiet. So there's lots of different, energy and atmosphere in the room. So share with us on a very high level, like what kind of themes did you see with the videos? What kind of different themes? What kind of can we learn from the audience of what you have observed from a high level? Whoever wants to go first.
So just starting out, as I was watching, and for some of the films, rewatching them, I thought about what Holly was saying around the emotions that films evoke, right? And so, like you said, watching different people's reactions in the rooms, one of the things that came across about the storytelling is it isn't as simple as just stating the facts of what's going on. Sometimes you just want to say there's a beginning, middle, and an end, and like here are the facts, here's the sort of linear way that we've done that, right? But you have to get to the core of the story. And so some things that are really jumping out to me is looking at what's happening in society right now. And you saw that in the films. These organizations and brands aren't afraid to get political in some ways, and not sort of just like voting politics, but saying like what are your core values. And I think that's something that has changed a lot, but something that's so core to storytelling.
Thank you. Natasha, anything you would add?
That's definitely the case. I noticed a couple of things that I thought are helpful just kind of across the board if you're looking to use this format to advance your movement. So the first thing is keeping the story editorial. So even though these pieces might be promotional, it's thinking that your best bet in terms of getting expansive organic distribution is to keep the stories editorial. So for example, the first story, Perfection, that was not necessarily associated to a brand, the story about the girl, with the Da Vinci drawing. But it could have been. At the end, it could have been brought to you by XYZ, and you could have made the connection in that way. And I think that is a very powerful technique that is sometimes underused, because there's often a confusion when dealing with brands, be it for-profit or non-profit. When we're trying to tell the story of the brand or the story of the movement, we try to put them in the spot of the protagonist. But actually, a brand, as soon as you make the brand the protagonist, then it automatically becomes promotional. It kind of smells promotional, and that's very difficult to get organic distribution. The other, maybe two things that I might share that I noticed. One is the way in which stereotypes were addressed. And I think pretty much across the board as storytellers, knowing how to apply the right antidote to the specific stereotype you're dealing with in your story that's kind of getting in the way of you advancing your movement, it's very important. So we saw that in Crazy Dreams, was that the name of the film? So they took on a number of stereotypes, right? From poverty to a refugee, to different abilities, all different sorts of stereotypes. And I noticed that they were very careful about how they applied the right antidote. I think they did that very effectively. You also saw that with Perfection as well. And last thing I'd share is specificity. It's all in the details, kind of the small little details. Not only in the picture, sometimes when we're making films, we think, the words can just speak, but then the pictures really bring it to life. But actually, if you do a really good job of getting really specific with the pictures, that gives you so much more freedom with the image. So one example there would be Callisto?
Callisto from the Skull Foundation, yep.
Yes, Callisto, and you know, when the women were saying, and they started asking me, well, how did you say no? And how many times did you say no? And what were you wearing? And how did you push back? You know, it's like that. So it's very different to hear that kind of specificity rather than, they didn't believe me. What does that mean? Can you picture that? No. But actually, if you hold the words to the standard of painting the picture, then that just kind of injects so much more power in the overall.
Thanks for the insight. I'm also curious, are there any additional secret sauces? Like when an organization thinks about creating a video, you have seen so many different videos, both of you, what's the very special ingredient that you think is needed that makes it unique, or what are the different ingredients that could be used to really make videos powerful? Whoever wants to go. If there's anything you want to add. I know there was some you already mentioned.
Yeah, the type of work that we specialize in is in personal narrative. So first person story rather than third person narrator telling you somebody else's story. And when you're short on resources and short on time and short on length of film, that actually is a very powerful thing to use, is that personal connection, is drawing somebody into your human situation, making them see themselves in there. And so not being afraid to get personal. Almost everybody that we work with initially is very hesitant about getting personal. The most typical response we get to that is that, oh, this is not about me, this is about the movement. Well, guess what? It is about you, because to the extent that people are interested in getting into your world, then they will be more likely then to become interested in what you care about.
I would also add that it's really important to, one, center your audience, so know who you're speaking to, because sometimes we want something to reach everyone, and that's not really a demographic. So you have to think about who your audience is, and then also think about who you have in the room. There's this tendency, I think, with social entrepreneurs and nonprofit organizations, and to sort of have this idea of how can we save whoever or whatever. I laughed a lot during the frog promo, because this idea that I'm gonna go in and save someone, right? And so because of that guilt aspect of bringing in the dollars, a lot of times we don't think about who we're telling stories about and how they are going to respond to that. And a lot of times we don't even think about bringing the people we're telling the stories about into the storytelling room. And so I think that you start to get very powerful narratives when you are paying attention to who's making the film, who's directing it, who's writing it, who's there in the editing room, and then also what the participation level from the folks that you're documenting looks like. And I think when you have all of those folks drawn in, you create something that's very different than you on the marketing side of a product, or you on the development side of a nonprofit are gonna come up with on your own.
Thank you. All right, audience, any questions, any comments? Yes, go ahead. You go first.
Are those clips going to be on the website? Can we?
Yes.
And contact information for the people.
You'll get a little follow-up email with the links on the website and how you reach them. Yes. Any other question?
Perfect. Here you go.
Hi, my name's Lee. Just what you just said, I've been pondering and thinking about, because I just started working the last year with organizations, helping them tell their story through video. And I'm working with one client right now, and they've started to enter the room, and we're sort of in this collaboration. I'm like, wow, okay, it's a whole different, it feels like a whole different approach, the whole participatory, how do you engage? And I'm looking for more resources, because I'm kind of new, maybe they're out there already, but I want to build in my business a structure that incorporates more of how do we, like have more of a structure so that we can be more creative together. Because I can see how the boundaries get messy sometimes, and then I'm like, oh yeah, you are kind of the directing it, but you want to engage the people, and so if you have any suggestions on where to go for that, or any filmmakers who are doing that and talking about it, and that would be awesome.
So in terms of resources, I'm going to give you my card because I can't think of them off top, but I will say that a large part of my framework comes from youth organizing, and then also because I have a background in public health. And so we are all about participation, where my journalism background is very counter to that. So for me, it's more of like a melding of experiences. And so I think that the folks who do it well are people who work on impact producing. So if you look at resources around community outreach and impact producing, I think you have a lot more participation-based examples. And then if you look at the way people do health and social behavior and public health, and what that participant-centered research looks like, you get an idea of what it's like to bring people into a room as a collaborator versus someone that you're documenting.
I'd just like to add briefly that we had a hard time finding these sorts of resources. We just kind of wanted a roadmap of how to do impact filmmaking. And so after 9 years of doing this, we just developed a curriculum ourselves to share with filmmakers and purpose-driven organizations. And it's called Compelling Visual Storytelling. If you go to our website, you can find more information about that.
Any other questions? Scott is walking around. There's one here in the front, Scott. I don't know, in the back.
Hi, I really liked the one with the rainforest, and I felt as though I actually got educated, And what I liked was that the storytelling inoculated a lot of reservations that I think a lot of people have about. So it just basically went through our brains, and it sort of went through all the steps that we would stop ourselves. Like, well, I don't know what to do. So it sort of, it went into our brains, and it said, yeah, well, this is something you've been thinking, and now we're going to deal with that, and then we're going to deal with the next thing you've been thinking, and the next thing you've been thinking, and then get to the part where we can actually take some action. And it was very small, and I really liked that process. I thought it was very well done. I just wonder if you have any thoughts about it. I was trying to phrase it in a question. I couldn't even make it come out as a question.
I think that, was it kind of loud? I think that when I think about what the sort of storytelling process may have been for that, or the development process, I think about what it looks like to ask all of the questions of yourself to say, like, what films or short pieces are people currently creating, and what are the gaps that we've seen in that? Because when I see this and I think about just the idea of like saving the rainforest or leading a revolution or whatever it is, there's a lot of tropes that pop up for me, and there are a lot of things that I think would make me like irritated with someone who's like, let's talk about saving the rainforest, and I'm like, but what are you doing? Who are you? Why are you? So you have these questions, and I think that sitting down and very much being honest with yourself about what's happening already in the field can help you in that sort of storytelling structure to make sure that you don't fall into that, bless you. And then also to help you figure out, okay, it's one step to not fall into that trap, but what's the next step we can take to address that, right? Without necessarily being like, calling out other organizations, but how do we model and how do we call out at the same time, or call in, as people like to say, and then move from there. And I think that really helped with the story structure.
Nice. Any final questions?
Hi, Natasha. We loved working with micro-documentaries, and I was trying to remember in your methodology the idea around the personal story and the tension. I can't remember whether it was tension and then you find like it wasn't problem solution. And so I'm wondering if you could talk a little bit about that, because I really think that was powerful with your process, is really getting to the heart of the individual's challenge or
Yeah, so it comes back to this idea of trying to make it editorial, right? And so, and engaging and compelling. So what does compelling mean? Compelling means this idea that the audience wants more and more and more. They keep coming into your story. So so there are two things that often get in the way of that. One is if you lead with an issue. Why? Because journalists have kind of overused that. And so we are so bombarded by issues that, you know, that we're oversaturated. So chances are that if you kind of, before I even know who you are and before I even like you, and you hit me up with a really important issue, I just can't take it anymore, right? On the other hand, then you would think, well, then I better lead with my solution. But the problem with that is that corporations have sometimes overused that. And so then you start sounding like an ad, and who's ready to watch another ad, right? So then the idea is, well, what is the framework in which you present something? And the framework that we like to use is more a framework of possibility, engaging, drawing the audience in to get innovative with us, to participate in the possibility of the vision that we are imagining, but we draw them in through an actual story in which there's movement and transformation. So that you have a proper narrative arc, even if you're talking about a piece that's 2 or 3 minutes long, like what we produce with the Autodesk Foundation, which Paige is a leader at. So, yeah, does that answer your question? Is that what you were thinking?
I think that's a nice segue, and like drawing people in. Like I would love to draw you in to really get to know the representatives of all the videos and a lot of the filmmakers. So I think we'll just do a little segue. You have the chance to get to know many of them. We have some tables here in the back with some collateral, and invite all the representatives just to go back there because we're very close to our break. Well deserved. And I mean, just a really big thank you for sharing some of the insights. So it was just to spare some ideas and kind of get you asking for the networking reception now. So big round of applause to you for being open for an experiment